Hey everybody, I am here with a little demo for y'all that I finally got around to building. Better late than never, but I wanted to talk a little bit about hotwire, which stands for HTML over the wire, and it was developed by the Ruby on Rails team sometime maybe last year. I want to say it was released, and I was really excited to try it out because it follows a very different paradigm to building front-end applications or just web applications in general, because it does involve front-end and back-end. But I think if you're like me, you're possibly a JavaScript or a TypeScript developer, maybe working in React, Next.js stack, and have been intrigued by this and always wanted to try it, but there's always this chasm of building, because it comes out of the box with Ruby on Rails these days. It's very similar to Phoenix Live View, which is an Elixir-based framework, or Laravel Livewire, which is the PHP-based framework. But crossing that chasm of trying a paradigm like this and learning a new backend language, if you're new to it, always will kind of muddy the way that you view these things, because you have to kind of cross this chasm of, am I not productive in this because I don't know the backend language? And if I did learn that, would I be productive in it? That being said, hotwire is really cool because it is actually platform agnostic or backend agnostic. And with a little bit of effort, you can integrate it into your stack. And the interesting thing about hotwire as well is it's touted as this framework where you can have the responsiveness on your front end of a single page application, but without writing a lick of JavaScript. Well, I built it in a JavaScript backend, or in this case, a TypeScript backend. And so you could write a lot of JavaScript, just not a lot of front end JavaScript. And I think that'll help cross the chasm for me so I could kick the tires on this without having to possibly not enjoy learning a different framework in a language I'm unfamiliar with. So without further ado, I'll kind of show you guys what I've been up to. In terms of a backend framework, I decided to go with Nest.js, not Next.js. Nest.js is a, no, didn't, Nest, here. Why are we not finding the nestjs.com, not .org, of course, so kind of correct that for you guys. So Nest.js is a backend framework for Node. I like it a lot. I really enjoy it. It also has a lot of recipes. So if we go to the documentation, it has a recipe called MVC, or is that in Techniques? Model View Controller. There it is. So it's got the Model View Controller technique. I decided to go with their example and use handlebars. You can use any view engine you like for this. Some people, EJS is probably closer to ERB if you had come from the Ruby world before. Nunjux is kind of like Jinja, but which is in the Python world. So it's not bound to this. I just decided to stick with the basic example here. Where we go. So I'll show you guys. Let's just start with the initial docs. There's a few pieces to this, but we're really going to focus on Turbo specifically. There's also a front-end framework called Stimulus and a native application bridge called Strata. I did not delve into those. You're welcome to pick whatever front-end framework you want to work alongside Turbo if you feel you need that. Some interesting ones would be something like Alpine.js, which I think Alpine is really cool. It takes a very different paradigm than Stimulus. But again, it's all personal preference here. I did not integrate that into my example. This is very, very bare bones Nest.js MVC. There's three parts to Turbo that we're really going to go over. One is Turbo Drive, which is allowing you to not do full page reloads when navigating. Then Turbo Frames, which is the decomposing of your application into these tiny little frames, or in some cases components that are driven by the server this time. And then Turbo Streams, which allows you to deliver real-time updates to other parts of the app or to other users of the same app logged in. It's actually really cool, and I'm not diving into Turbo Native at the moment. So that's, again, for iOS and Android apps, we could deal with that. But this is really meant if you were like me, where you wanted to kick the tires on this, try to build an app that you've maybe built in React before and want to know what's the difference. And again, didn't want to have to cross this huge chasm of learning Ruby on Rails, or relearning, in my case, Ruby on Rails, because you've been away from the community for quite some time. So let's just start. I created just really bare bones page here. And I want to just show you the initial, let's just say we have 2 pages, home and about, and you can see how the actual application is reloading the entire page when I go between these 2. So let's first get fired up with Turbo. So I will hop on over here, and again, this is my index.hbs, my handlebars template, and I've commented a few things out, and we'll go over each one. But let's just start by uncommenting this line right here. And we're not going to need connect stream source yet. That's for future. So just having hotwired turbo running is going to eliminate the full page navigations from our application. So let's just take a look at how that worked out. So give a quick refresh here. If we go to about and home, you can see now that full page refresh isn't happening anymore. It's fetching the page in the background and replacing the body of the page. So that's step 1 to getting this working. One thing I wanted to show you guys in the app controller, or not in main.ts, sorry, is when you're setting up handlebars in this repo, I did set up this concept of partials and watched partials, because I do like to be able to break up my HTML, and I wanted every time you saved your handlebars templates using the default example in Nest.js, you'd have to refresh the page every time, which I think would get a little bit cumbersome. We wanted to or not even refresh the page. You'd have to restart the server. Right now, I'm not doing any kind of hot reloading, so you have to refresh, but at least you don't have to restart the server. It'll pick up your partial changes. So little convenience methods like that help me. I don't like to spend a ton of time on them, but if you're used to things like Next.js, that would get pretty annoying to have to like Control-C, npm start dev every time. So you got a little bit of a server reload on your handlebars templates. And this is organized into partials, which are just small fragments of HTML, basically, little handlebars templates. Then you have your turbo frames. We'll go over those in just a moment. And then you also have TurboStreams, and we'll get to those eventually. So let's start by going back to index.hbs and starting with turbo frames. Uncomment this line here. And a turbo frame can almost be thought of as like a small iframe. It has an ID. It has a loading state. Think React suspense, right? And then it has a source, which I've created in our app controller here. And it is going to return, so a get request to /messages is going to render turbo frames /messages, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's really cool because it's just the frame. I don't even have to send over a full HTML document with a head or anything. If I do, it'll actually pluck this out of it and match the IDs up. But to keep the responses really small, I'm just sending the frame over and go over to, you know, this nice render decorator. Creates that, and then I'm passing the data in that it expects. So it's expecting messages, loops over the messages, and then we have a partial that shows the message, the individual message, which is just a list item, and we have an edit button here, and we'll go over that in just a second. So let's just see how this renders on the front end. So coming back over here, refresh. Here's all of our messages that we were talking about. You can see I've already edited one to be test, and that was from a previous example, but it loads it, and you could see that quick. It flashes for a second because it loads so fast, but we have a quick loading state, and then it loads in this turbo frame of all of our messages. So let's keep moving right along, and you can see in the app service, so if you come over here, Nest is divided into services and controllers. Services is where your business logic goes. I, again, did not break this up into multiple modules, controllers, and services like we would. I just created some basic messages with some default data, and I can reset this to get you guys the fresh data. And then I made some quick kind of methods that'll update these messages. So we have get messages, find messages, edit messages, create messages, and then a send TurboStreams event, which is really where the magic happens here. So let's take a look at what happens when we click on the edit button, which is going to take us to a new route. So you're literally navigating inside this frame to messages, message ID, edit. We could go to our controller, and I created messages, ID, edit. We're going to render TurboFrames message, and it returns the data for that message. So if I hop over here and I hit edit, it's rendering the new template. So if we take a quick look at TurboFrames edit message, you can see here it's a turbo frame that has the ID that matches the frame that it's going to be swapping out. So we have a turbo frame inside of there, and it has the edit message form right inside of here. And you have an action, post. The action maps over to something in our controller. We have messages, edit, and we're going to render, when we're done, the view message. So it's going to return to the view message state. So what we're having happen here is we're going to edit. After a successful update, it's going to return the next frame that should render in that slot instead of what's there. It's just going to swap them out. So if I change this back to message 1 and update, back to message 1. If I edit a different message, message 3, this is a cool edit. And it just swaps them out. So it's moving between states by talking to the server first, and again, returning a tiny little view message frame that we had created, or an edit message frame. So every time you make an update or an action, you return the component, so to speak, that you want to render in that spot instead. And you can also return other components matched by ID that you would like to update all over the page. So it's a little bit of a different paradigm than we're used to. Instead of saying, here's the JSON, and then letting the client direct that into the components you rendered, maybe using Redux or something like that to pass that data and propagate it throughout different parts of our app. So it's a little bit of a different paradigm there. That's TurboFrames. Next piece is TurboStreams. So let me just show you a cool example here. Oh, bringing it back over. Let's put these two side by side. I'm just going to refresh this. This is the same exact app side by side, and you can see our edits here. And if I go to message 1 and I change it over to this is a new message, this is a refresh this message here. So in order to show this, kind of cool, but not exactly what we were looking for. This is where TurboStreams comes in. Let's hop on over here and let's uncomment some of these items that I've commented out so that we have them available to us. All right, this one's uncommented and this is uncommented. So TurboStreams, and we have to uncomment one more piece here in our handlebars template. We have to uncomment this code right here. And I'll show you exactly what this is doing. This is taking in connect stream source, and we're creating a new event source to a route called TurboStreams, and we're connecting to that stream source. So let's save that. So now hotwire is going to connect to what is in our controller at the bottom here, a server-side event called TurboStreams. And this is going to emit events from our server to our client, and it leverages event emitter under the hood. And if we just toggle over to the other pane here, you can actually see I have a send TurboStream event helper set up, because what's going to happen is we pass in the template from TurboStreams, and this is just how I'm organizing it for the demo. You feel free to update this however you want. I can show you an update message, and this is a sample TurboStream. It's going to render it with the action of replace, so it's going to replace what was there for its target with this template. And you have to wrap it in these template strings. So each of these things do something a little bit different. And then what this does is this just renders it with handlebars, emits an event to our server send event. You can emit these events from anywhere within your app the way that I've sent it up, called a TurboStream event, and it passes that payload up to the client. So again, let's save all this and let's do a quick refresh on this side. We are totally refreshed. Go over here. Totally refreshed. Back over here. Now let's see what happens when we update message 1. This is an update to message 1. And did you see right here on that side? We now are streaming updates live between two connected apps. This is great for things like chat, or if you're building, in the case of hey.com, and inbox or whatever. And it'll update many parts of the page. So I can stream any of these things as side effects, and it can say, hey, whoever's connected to this data, you need to update this data. And then, you know, another stream. And you saw that real-time update. So I have pushed this repository up to our cause of a kind Git repo just for fun, for other people to hop in here and see if they enjoy this paradigm. For me personally, I think the next step is to actually try to build something we've built before in React or Next.js or one of our other frameworks, meta frameworks, and see. And also, if you're not a fan of Nest, I'm hoping this can help you figure out, like, this is the type of thing I think it'd be cool. This could work in Astro or Bare Metal Express or something like Nitro, which I think is a really cool server framework as well. I think there's a lot of ways you could work with this. As long as you have support for server sent events and WebSockets, you can connect this. But this is enough, I think, to get you going. It's the MVC. If you really like that Rails style model view controller and you were looking for that from your framework, I think there's some really cool recipes in here for working with Prisma and setting up the model aspect of things. So I think that Nest has generators too. So if you're used to those Rails style generators to generate resources and stuff like that, that's why I chose Nest, because I think it gets you closest to that Rails style feel. If you were missing some of that coming into the JavaScript world and you were always kind of thinking, I wish they would implement something like that, I think Nest does a nice job of that. And I think this really gets you to a place where you have pretty good functionality for having no front-end framework. There's no front-end build process at all in this. This is all the JavaScript. I'm using Skypack off the CDN, not even using NPM. This is just scratching the surface. So Turbo can do a lot more. I encourage you to browse the docs. I'm going to start pushing the limits of this now that I have this set up and try and build something. A big thing for us is we like to do MVPs in under 90 days. So I want to know if there's a way to build applications faster. This is always an important thing for me. And if this really does deliver on that promise of building applications faster with smaller teams, then I'm all game for that. So I encourage you to check it out. I'll share the Git repo in the show notes, and enjoy.